in from curiosity to confidence, AI readiness boost for nonprofits and advocacy. Got a really great group of our core folks who are helping put together our AI cohort and doing our deep thinking and training and strategy around AI for organizations. Folks who think about themselves as squarely in the nonprofit charity camp and in advocacy who do political issue organizing, right? And sometimes think of ourselves more as the advocacy camp, right? And so what we're going to talk about applies to everyone in the organizational for social impact, social change, nonprofit, however you want to categorize yourself. We're here for you. Let's go through what we're going to chat about today. First, we'll do a quick welcome and introduction, a little bit of who we are and why we're really focusing on AI readiness for mission-driven organizations, why AI for nonprofits now. And we'll talk a little bit about the adoption gap. Then we'll talk a little bit about the cohort overview. Then we'll have some time for Q&A, discussion and chat with folks who are joining live, just about all things AI for organizations. And with that, we'll jump in and do some quick intros. A little bit about who we are. So the cohort leaders, the group of folks, what we have though, and I'll share with you, you can find more of the folks on the cohort landing page. We're actually going to be adding a whole much bigger roster of folks who are joining us, a group of folks who are dedicated to empowering mission-driven organizations. And so we have about 15 advisors and instructors currently who are going to be joining. That's what I think is one of the really beautiful things to me about this particular cohort and what we're building out, right? It's not just one or two people's take on what AI for nonprofits should be. It is a conglomeration of a bunch of folks. And some of that makes it tricky to build. Some folks were like, well, that seems like a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And so we are, if we're going to, how do we maximize and leverage a bunch of different folks who are doing this? And part of the reason why this is really important, and I think to the rest of the team, is that building a larger roster of people is super critical in this moment and probably in the year or years to come, because AI is so new and moving so quickly, right? So if you're learning from just one or two people, they will help share a ton to you, but by pulling in a bigger brain trust, we're going to help empower people with a much more diverse and wide-ranging strategies. A team of strategists, and everyone here is working at the intersection of technology, ethics, and social impact. Everyone who's part of this is also concerned about the ethical side of it. And so with that, we'll do a quick round of intros of who we are as people, those of us who are joining you here today. So first, I'm Brad. My name is Brad Caldana. I'm the founder of the Center for Digital Strategy and the author of the Digital Plan. I've been working in the digital strategy, technology, and innovation space for nonprofits for almost 2 decades now. It's been a long time in Obama campaign world, and after doing a number of things there to help support the campaign, the TNC structure, the like post-campaign organizing for action apparatus, doing a lot of issue work there. Since then, I've worked with a countless number of organizations around the world and in political campaigns, thinking about how do we use digital strategy and technology to further our goals and meet the impact of the things that we're working on, right? And so that's my passion, and a lot of that we do through trainings at the Center for Digital Strategy. I also host summits and different courses throughout the year. We have an AI summit coming up at the end of this month. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to and we're going to go in the order of people I talked to about the cohort. And so, Rachel, I'm going to pass it over to you next.
I'm Rachel Kimber, founder of Full Circle Impact Solutions. My co-lead Blanche Vance and I have decades of experience in the philanthropic space, fundraising and grant making. We're trying to make sure that both sides of that conversation are benefiting from the potential of AI. And so what I do is weave together people, process, and tools. And that's the foundational approach of the consultancy, is making sure folks understand that the fear reaction is real, right? People are scared about losing jobs. They're scared about climate change. And all of that is really relevant because none of this work can happen if we don't think about the people. Our process, not super equitable right now. AI is a disruptor. It's an opportunity to shift the way we do things. And it starts with each of us and our individual workflows and thinking about how AI could start to build in equity or drive inclusion or provide better access. And so these are the kinds of things we'll be talking about in the cohort, and always having spent so many years in philanthropy with an ethical and equity lens. How do we make sure that we're proceeding with caution? How do we make sure that we're including, appropriate stakeholders at various decision points? And so there's a lot to think about as we begin adopting and exploring the variety of artificial intelligence that we could be using at our organization. As a teacher and trainer, knowledge sharer, I'm just so excited to be able to bring folks together and not necessarily provide answers, but to ask really good questions and to give you the tools and the confidence to continue on the journey. I will pass. Ryann Miller is next in my little pop-up bubble here.
Sure.
So Ryann, if you'd like to jump in.
Hey, Ryann, can you hear us? I think your audio got scrambled. I'm going to jump to Ben and we'll try to figure out your audio and let us know when you can hear us.
No worries. Hey, everyone. Yeah, my name's Ben Childers. I'm one of the co-founders of Strativation Partners, and we're really interested in how to help nonprofit organizations get unstuck, modernize, and expand. And so, how can you do that sustainably? How can you do that ethically? And, what does that look like to really take a stakeholder approach to your expansion efforts in the terms of the beneficiaries that you want to serve, the volunteers you want to bring in, the donors that you want to engage with, the advocates that you want to have by your side. And so we take a cohesive view of what expansion looks like for organizations. And I'm a former teacher. I did high school mathematics. So for all of you that hated your high school math teacher, I'm sorry on behalf of all of us high school math teachers. We do try usually very hard to make it enjoyable, even if it wasn't. And I'm just really excited to continue the training and learning experience here with Brad, Ryann, Rachel, and Valerie. Back to you, Brad.
Yeah, and I think we lost Ryann altogether. So let's jump over to the slides and we'll bring her back in when she comes back in. First of all, we're just talking about the AI landscape for nonprofits. One is momentum, right? The rapid acceleration of AI tools specifically designed for mission-driven work, parsing out the ones that are truly mission-driven and those that aren't.
Hear me and see me?
Let's give you your intro moment.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here. And thank you, Brad, Rachel, and Ben. And sorry, Rachel, I was starting to hear you saying you were passing the mic, and then everything went away. My name is Ryann Miller. My pronouns are she, her. I come to you about an hour and a half north of Toronto, Ontario in Canada. And the reason that my laptop decided to dip was basically because it's windy outside and I'm in the country. And so you never know. It's like olden times when it comes to Wi-Fi access up here. I've been in the nonprofit sector on the progressive side of the nonprofit sector for over 21 years now. And I am a PhD dropout in modern Buddhism before that. Left that and like the proverbial ivory tower to work in fundraising, specifically in digital multi-channel fundraising. At that time, 21 years ago, we called it Philanthropy and fundraising. And I have been mostly doing consulting, mostly doing kind of strategic work, as well as campaigns and fundraising, advocacy work, engagement, marketing, etc., with and for nonprofits, advocacy organizations, and some political organizations for more or less all of those 21 years. I've got deep progressive values. I'm a strong believer in decolonization and in equity and in trying to figure out the values-based and more ethical ways that we can use the things that we cannot really avoid, but use them for good and be thoughtful about them. And I'm the very, very recent founder of a consultancy called Spark and Signal. But don't find me there yet because I'm still working on the website. You can find me on LinkedIn. I think you can find all the stuff here, but I'm Ryann Miller. I think it's Ryann Miller 1. I do have 2 N's in my name. And Spark and Signal is focused, I think, to some extent, there's a little bit of commonality with Rachel, as well as with Valerie, who's not able to join us today, as well as with Ben and Brad. And that is trying to find ways that, trying to meet the sector where we are more largely in the moment. And Rachel was speaking to not necessarily having answers, but being able to figure out and frame what the right questions are. And Brad was speaking to doing this collaboratively. And I think those are 2 really, really important kind of themes for this. We are at the forefront of, a huge kind of paradigm shift, and are all individually and collectively here with you now together in order to try and offer a lot of value, like a kind of jam-packed value cohort program. so that everyone can do the best with the resources, time we have in order to kind of do our missions. That's the purpose and point here. So that's what I do. That's what I'm doing here with you today. Brad, back over to you.
Awesome. So there we go. Yeah, getting into the juicy meat of it and the rapid acceleration of AI tools and how we're using them in mission-driven work. And then I think I love technology. I'm using Gamma AI for this slide presentation. And for whatever reason, their slide advance can't use up and down. You've got to use left and right. And I'm just using up and down. There is probably more, I think in most organizations, there's more confusion than momentum. On the tech and tool side, lots of momentum. And I think so many folks uncertain about where to start and which tools that will actually deliver value, and the urgency, a growing pressure to adopt AI while maintaining organizational values. And really, we're witnessing a transformative moment where the right approach to AI can significantly amplify your impact, right? And as we all know, at a time when budgets are more crunched than ever, organizations are going through a lot of hard things. I just want to share my one quick hot take, or how kind of I'm thinking about a little bit of like where we are at AI. I keep using a Twitter analogy where, there was this period, even when Twitter was pretty well known, you had power users who were using Twitter all the time, and they lived it and they loved it. And they were like, I don't know why everyone's not using Twitter. It's fucking amazing. And then you had another sliver of the population who like got on Twitter a couple times and they're like, I'm not quite sure what to do here. Like, what am I supposed to post? Why is it all moving so fast? And then they heard about Twitter, right? Like, it was in the news. They were sharing, like, you see it in news articles all the time. You're like, oh, that's what it is. Those other people use it. And now I get third-party info via this other app. And the actual majority that like never logged on, never used it, but like it was like impacting their lives, right? Because it was this other media channel. That's kind of how I think about AI, right? If you're like, I'm not really sure where to start, like, you are in the vast majority. There is like there are the power users out there who are like talking about it all the time. And there are a lot of folks you might be in the bucket where you're like, I've tried a little bit of prompting and like I could see how it's helpful, but it's not that helpful for me yet. And then there's everyone else.
Brad, I want to layer on that analogy a little bit because
Yeah.
I think it's even bigger than that, right? Like, I think we could ignore Twitter. I did. I was one of those people that like logged on and was like, I don't want to deal with this. It's another platform. I just can't. But right now, the momentum, the confusion, and the urgency is being driven dramatically because we have the equivalent of, really easy to say, a computer, but let's say a car, right? Cars have just entered our world. Substitute AI and think about what cars have done, right? Whether or not you want one, you drive one, you've ridden bikes for the last 40 years exclusively, the cars are here. And so we all need to be able to participate and understand how it functions, what kind of regulations we might want in place. And hey, who's going to think about the seatbelts? Probably the biggest skeptics, right? Like, let's not use these like racing machines to go and hurt and injure our communities. And so that's where I think the analogy is richest. There's a full culture change that needs to happen, and we cannot ignore this. And so that's the urgency I'm feeling. And so, love your Twitter example, but because I could sidestep Twitter and still endure, I just want to let folks know you're not going to be able to sidestep AI and still endure.
So many places you go with that analogy too, right? You think about the railroad ghost towns, like towns that grew up around railroads and disappeared. But it's as if like the cars and the highways all came overnight, right? It's like not just like the cars showed up, but like there's still horse and buggies in the street, and cars are hitting horses and buggies. The confusion is crazy. There are people who are in cars right now, moving quickly, similar to the car showing up, but it's showing up super quickly and ready to use. It's dump trucks, buses, trucks, and Lamborghinis all showed up at the same time with highways. And like, not the like shock and scare part, but like, yes, there are job functions that are going to go away, right? And like, just like that happened with the car, right? With each advance in technologies, things shifted. I think, though, in that there's a lot of rich opportunity for nonprofits, in my opinion, that like eliminating a lot of busy work and leveling up, because not just are we experiencing a budget crunch now, we never had the capacity we needed to do the work we needed to do, right? And so I think it is a potential opportunity to allow us to have the capacity not just to move past the busy work, but actually to like accelerate even further beyond that, to make the work we're doing better in ways that we can't even quite foresee yet. And I saw Ben and Ryan shaking some heads too. Either of you want to jump
Yeah.
in?
Yeah, and I'll say, to keep that car analogy going, it's not like they just showed up overnight. But and I take this from Bree Ben, who's one of the founders of Advocacy AI. You know, she uses the analogy of like, and we call them all cars. We call trains cars and trucks cars and motorcycle car, like everything. We just use one word for a car, which makes it even more confusing, right? If you're trying to regulate cars, well, do you mean like the semis on the roads, or do you mean, you know, like my little like 125cc like moped? There's really different viewpoints in terms of how to even, you know, regulate those things. And so if we're thinking about it in that way and combining the urgency, the overnightness of it, and the fact that there's still a lot of definitions that need to be made concrete when we're even talking about AI, I think that also provides a lot of frustration, you know, that can really lead to, you know, one of the core things that you put here, which is around like the confusion. Are we talking about some machine learning algorithm that you're using to help make matching easier for bigs and littles, for big brothers, big sisters of America? Or are you talking about using predictive or generative AI to write, you know, standard operating procedures for your organization? Like, those are both AI, but they're very different AI.
Yeah. Ryan, you want to jump in?
Sure. I agree with the analogies, and I always love a good analogy. So I'm here for that. I think that like I agree with what everybody has said. And I just generally think because I've been in the sector for 21 years, I remember the conversations that I had with organizations around the need to grow email, and that they had to put, you know, basically kind of like put money in next year's budget or the year after, new website iterations, new tools, things that they didn't know, didn't see coming, and were hard pressed to figure out where they were going to find the budget for. Even things like on a granular level, like why take budget out of our direct mail program to invest it in the acquisition of email when, you know, we're not seeing the same return on investment. Like these are questions we know in the world of nonprofit and advocacy org, like the kind of funding and operational side. We know that there's like the kind of fundraising and marketing and operational kind of like the ROI, and like what's the ROI we're going to see, and what is the time frame, and will it be in the next kind of 12 to 18 months. And then there's like the rest of the world, including donors, advocates, and like stakeholders of all varieties, as well as, and I also just mean like the actual rest of the world. We like, in some ways, with or without AI, the for-profit world has been kind of like slowly but surely eating our lunch from a branding and marketing point of view for the last 20 years. And it drives me crazy that like the whatever it is, like the Home Depot commercial during Pride Month, I say this as a like out queer person, is that like people love the Home Depot ad that they spent so much money on, and not exactly sure about the values that they have to back it up. People feel good about that, and then they don't give to an actual LGBTQ plus organization. So with all of this in mind, I know from my kind of like long in the tooth point of view that those conversations around digital 21 years ago just got more urgent. The budget got smaller. The organizations that found ways to evolve and pivot early and then institutionalized that innovative and active learning mindset thrived in ways that other organizations did not. COVID had a weird benefit of hitting digital maturity. A lot of organizations that weren't really doing it or didn't want to beforehand, or not as much or not as well. But we don't want that to ever happen again. We certainly don't want to have to rely on that ever again. There's like big fears, big hesitations, big concerns, big worries, big risks, of course, when it comes to AI. And still, the question isn't should we or shouldn't we, or should we wait? Should we wait for other organizations? Should we wait for somebody to tell us what to do? Should we wait for governments to kind of like put policies into place to mandate this better? Because we know we can all look around at the state of the world, especially when it comes to the larger AI organizations and the governments and policies that they have, or the lack thereof. We know that it's really up to us. So the question isn't kind of like, should we or shouldn't we? The question isn't even really what. The question is like, how do we do this best in ways that fit with our limited everything resources now, but with a view and goal towards using these tools to expand those resources and using this in ways to like with guidelines, policies, et cetera, that are both specific to be valuable enough, but also open and flexible enough to be kind of realistic and account for the constantly evolving nature of the world that we live in. So that's just my addition to the cars analogy.
I love it. And let's jump into the next slide, 'cause I think we're all already here too. The AI adoption gap, right? So, like you said, Ryan, like the for-profit sector is racing ahead, right? And nonprofits and advocacy organizations are risking falling behind. We've got the limited resources for technology exploration, way fewer technical staff, if any, dedicated to AI integration, higher stakes for ethical implementation, right? Like we all know that's real, right? Like you have just really different considerations to think about versus a company that's like, oh, we don't care, will give us an edge, great, we'll use it. And unique needs not addressed by general AI solutions. Some of this to me goes back to, and not goes back to, but I think there's a piece of this that feels salient in the digital marketing world has always had direct parallels and things that are directly transferable to nonprofits and advocacy and campaigns, but not all of it. The goals at the end of the day are different. And still in much of the business world, right? They always talk about the funnel, right? Like we're using a business sales funnel. But if like you're building an organization and building community, you don't want to be pressing people through a funnel because you don't have one goal, unless you're like the shitty ATM organizations that think your email list is just to extract money from people versus like build power and do anything more worthwhile in the world, right? And so we see that replicated again in AI, right? That like the end goal and the outcomes are different. And so, there are how we use tools in many ways are different. There will always be one-to-one, but there are a lot of other really good pieces in there. And so would anyone wants to jump in on the gap or other thoughts on the high stakes moment we're in here?
I'm always ready to jump in, Brad. And that
Jump on
last
in.
bullet point it's gold because I've seen time and time again over the last 18 months as I'm teaching and training nonprofit folks come to me and say, is there a tool that does this? No, that doesn't exist yet, right? And so that's why we need to join this conversation. And what does it mean it doesn't exist yet? There's someone who works in New York City giving mortgages, working through the process of getting funding mortgages to folks who otherwise would not be eligible to buy a home, period. And so what this organization wanted to do is use some of the fintech tools to cut through some of the administrative work. They could not use any of those tools because immediately at the outset with the eligibility quiz, let's say, all of the algorithm eliminated the folks that this organization wanted to fund, right? So when there are issues with what the algorithm is doing with for-profit objectives, it's not going to work for our needs, which are impact, social, and collaborative in ways that the for-profit sector may not understand. So if we don't start understanding how the tool works and building the things that we need, we're not going to have them. And I point to something like, it's not the worst thing, but it's also not a good situation to be in. A tool like Salesforce, fantastic database. It does a lot of cool stuff. We're not generally making sales in the nonprofit sector. And so wouldn't it be cool to come to this moment differently than we did when we went to the cloud, which means some proactive and responsive to the moment approach. And that looks like coming to a cohort and figuring out how to build the tools that you need because they don't exist.
Absolutely, yes.
I'm going to jump over to this one because I think we can dovetail in what we were saying in the last one. Let's drop the spotlight off of this and just give us all the info all at once here. So I think this one's super critical. The cost of inaction versus thoughtful implementation. What are we seeing here? The risks of falling behind, reduced donor engagement and fundraising efficiency. I think organizations are like already are seeing that, and it's going to be compounded. I'm going to jump into an example on that one, right? Like, what do we exactly mean? Folks are starting on this right now. And I was just talking to someone who's working on a progressive AI tool that they're like, oh, I want to work with an organization so we can test doing more custom tailored engagement to more individuals by leveraging AI. And so other organizations are going to start doing this. They are going to start giving a better experience to people and making the emails and the other engagement touch points more authentic and engaging. And so I think some folks, when they hear AI, they think robots, blah, blah, blah. But there are people who are going to actually make it more authentic and engaging by using it in smart ways. There's going to be an inability to compete for attention in crowded spaces. We already see this with AI slop, growing operational inefficiencies as others streamline. And then on the other side, the benefits of thoughtful adoption, amplification to our mission and impact with the same resources, more personalized constituent engagement, the dovetail, as I was already saying, and a liberation of staff time for more high-value human work, which I think is super critical.
Brad, can I add in another point?
Yeah.
I agree with all of these. I also think that this, I don't know if this is a hot take or not, so you all can weigh in the comments and here, but I also think that that for many organizations in the social profit, nonprofit, advocacy, et cetera, sectors, we are coming up soon. There's going to be basically a talent cliff that organizations I'm scared are going to fall right over and not even see coming. And what I mean is, I think the standard kind of like first, second, third job out of college or out of, kind of like high school, or that subsector of new hire, of staff person, I think that those folks, assuming this isn't like a kind of second or third career transition, but assuming those folks are actually in their kind of like 20s, et cetera, those folks are going to be so accustomed to using AI and using any kind of automation tools. Like AI, sure, I can use that acronym, but all the automation, they're going to be so accustomed to using that in so many ways that when it comes time for the interviewer to say, do you have questions for me or for us? They will, when they start asking questions about process and how things work, and especially if those roles are at the coordinator level, like the kind of intro level where there is more kind of like operational and admin style work, I think those folks are not going to be, they won't accept the level of pay for the level of manual work that they have to do when they know better ways exist, because they have been using those better ways in their personal and prior educational lives and in other ways. I think that it's going to be very hard to hire people. And there's going to be this, like, we need to change everything like, operationally, how we run our organization and or pay staff more. I think this is going to be a whole other challenge that organizations have not, from what I'm seeing, have not really considered. This isn't kind of the only thing or more important than any of the other points that you raised, Brad. I just want to add that to the list, that the cost of inaction, I think, is going to have a real effect on the bottom line in a number of ways, and talent is one of them.
And the investment is small. I mean, really, the investment is not massive at this point.
No.
It's just get learning, get moving, start figuring it out.
Try things. Just try. That it like if something not working is not failure. It's a learning. Keep trying.
Yeah, I think the one big one here that I missed in the bullets that Rachel and I have talked a lot about is like the cost of organizational inaction, where the organization is not being thoughtful about this and staffers are just using it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And without guidelines and doing whatever it is they think they should or shouldn't be doing, right? And potentially exposing organizational information. And I think it really differs across organizations as to the kind of work you do. Are you a local ASPCA? Information you put into ChatGPT might not be so concerning about privacy. If you're a group working on immigration right now, you sure as hell shouldn't be putting sensitive information. No one should be putting any sensitive information into ChatGPT, regardless of ASPCA donor list or your an immigration group, right? But you are going to have folks using it, and it's interesting. I was talking to someone. The organization doesn't have real frameworks and policies. Their only role is if you used AI, you have to say you used AI. And this goes back to the cars analogy. Ben was like, well, what kind of car? Right? Because there's certainly designers right now using AI, but it's just generating part of the background and they're doing the rest of the design over top. But they're just cutting out 10% of their workflow that felt tedious. are they really going to tell someone every time they use that in Adobe? Probably not. Or like, are they going to tell every time they prompted something to get an answer and have it come back? Probably not. And because people are thinking AI and they're just thinking chat GPT and putting in data. So you've got to tell us when you've done this. But, we've got the AI sparkle on pretty much every tech tool. Right now, every tech tool has that little sparkle all of a sudden. And what it means by AI is really different in different places, right? And so I think that that's part of the cost of inaction is not actually knowing what in the hell staff are doing and not.
Well, you can't leverage or harness it if it's ad hoc and or informal and or hidden and literally under the table. All of those things point to not being a lack of actual governance, a lack of actual structure, strategy, thoughtfulness, cohesion, and integration with strat plans and budgets and staffing, even job descriptions, et cetera, an understanding of scopes and rules. I do see this as being kind of the big key thing from everyone I talk to and the work that I'm doing. It's not that people aren't using it. That conversation was more 6 months ago. Everyone's using it, but there's a real lack of policies, guidelines, structures. What questions should we be asking, and then we'll figure out what the answer is. And that is a giant risk to the slide, the cost of inaction.
Oh, and importantly, you need to be doing those things in parallel, right? You need to be doing the governance in parallel with the people portion of it in parallel with the technology piece of it in parallel, right? All three of those vertices need to be addressed simultaneously. And depending on your organization's risk appetite, you may want to focus on one of those 3 points more than the other one at the beginning. But if you're not doing them in conjunction and having them learn from each other and iterate on them, then you're just always going to find yourself with an excuse to not do anything. Because I'll say my one pushback here to Candace, thank you. We don't operate that much differently. I think the nonprofit sector really has this, we are so super special and everything has to be super special for us. And I think that is a crutch that people use to not look for innovative solutions that already may exist in the field. And it becomes a barrier to the work you want to do. And I know we're moving on to this next one. And the story here is I was meeting with somebody yesterday who's working with this really cool organization. They do matching for youth who have taken an alternative pathway to graduating from high school, and they do matching with employers in the area that they live in. And right now, that matching is all done by hand, and it takes a really long time to do all that matching. And I was talking to this consultant who's helping them with some work, and he was looking for some AI advice. And I was like, well, don't get concerned with adopting AI. Get concerned with what your vision for the organization is, and then think how technology can help do that better. And so I let him know that there was a Big Brothers Big Sisters, I think it's the Tampa Bay one, who they used a matching algorithm in-house that was locally stored to actually do the initial matching for bigs and littles. And then that recommendation then goes to a set of humans who have to then approve that match to happen. So there's still this really important human connection, but it reduced their match time by something 80%. Overall, they're able to match, they're able to do their mission better by utilizing a piece of technology. In this case, it uses machine learning to do that work, which is sits under AI, broadly speaking. But it was really them understanding what their mission and vision is, and then what technology they could use to be able to do that really matters here when we're looking at what some of these real world use cases could be for the social sector.
And Rachel, do you want to do the overview of this slide so they're not all in my voice? Just a quick readout of the slide.
Yes. And so during the course, we're going to explore so many real world cases. I think we've all spent at least the last 18 months collecting all kinds of things and had an opportunity to convene with N10 back in the spring and collect even more cases. And so we're going to be looking at messaging and communications. Again, really critical efficiency saver, content creation in your own voice, with your own branding style, right? Really making sure that this doesn't look like AI generated crap. There's a way to use the tool and really make sure that it's supporting you, not usurping your excellence. The other area where I think we understand there's a lot of urgency is around community organizing. There is really very clear research that points to, in order for individuals, community members to get activated around an issue, they need someone to spoon feed it to them. Here's the issue, here's the legalese, here's the executive order. What does this mean for you in particular? And it needs to come all the way down to that community level. So figuring out how we take that legalese and activate the community using AI-enabled tools will be a big part of the conversation. Another piece is program design. How are we going to design programs to get to those end goals? And so that will be a really ripe conversation around either it could be grant making, portfolio design, it could be a fundraising strategy, but there's lots of ways to use the tool that is not content generation and real thought partnership. And how do I develop this with these objectives in mind?
Awesome. And so I think what we'll do here is just do a kind of quick run through of the slides, kind of outlining the cohort, and then we'll jump more into the end kind of question conversation pieces here. So I'm super excited to be introducing the AI for Nonprofits cohort. It's going to be a complete learning journey. It's going to be 3 months, and it's going to kick off with foundational AI sessions. So right now, if you've been to the landing page, it says 6. Now it's 9 sessions that are really going to ground you in AI strategy for organizations, AI adoption, ethical frameworks, high-level strategy. How do you think about it interacting with data and data privacy policies? How do you think about it in creative generation? So I think, a lot of folks are mostly thinking about AI. Well, it really depends on your rules. Some people are like, oh, AI, it helps me with text. And other people are like, oh, AI helps me with video and design, right? And those are really different things, and they take really different modes of thinking and guidelines and things to think about like that. Really important peer learning community. So folks who join us in the cohort, it's going to be a true cohort, right? You are going to be in communication. You're going to be sharing best practice with each other, learning and building together, and really building this out, building thoughtful programs together, right? I think when I think so much about digital, and this is still true for so many folks in digital, is that they feel pretty isolated in organizations, right? Folks in leadership don't really get it. So you can't have a chat with them, right? And so really for folks who are starting to really dig into AI, giving them a community that they can engage with. Then we're going to dig into months 2 and 3, the tactical sessions, right? So really like soup to nuts, like how do you use AI to draft emails, and even like how to use it operationally in your email program. So not just the drafting, but overall other predictive things in your email program, and sessions like how do we talk to leadership about AI? How do we have lateral conversations about AI, right? It's a good chance if like you're in one of these early cohorts, you're probably from the comms or tech or digital sort of roles, right? And you probably want to have lateral conversations to people like, oh, this isn't just for this, it's also for this and this and this. It's not siloed just in creating emails and press releases. It can do all of these other things for you. And then office hours, building on the community and this amazing cohort of folks. I guess the cohort of instructors coming to join you, right? So we have over 15 people who are going to be coming and bringing their insights to help. We're going to have some focused office hours, right? So someone will be like AI for fundraising, right? And so you can bring any question, but there'll be someone in there who's been working with AI around fundraising a lot over the last year, and they will be better equipped to help you answer some of your questions. And then some ongoing resource access. So, there'll be prompting templates, there'll be guidelines, there'll be example AI policies. Pop over to the next one. Who's it for? Anyone want to give us the quick rundown here?
Yeah, so really our ideal participants, we are looking for folks who are interested and you're wanting to learn more. You're trying to kind of understand how all of this fits together, and you're really looking for some guidance. And I can't stress this enough, you're looking for a cohort model. You're looking to show up on a regular basis to a course to engage with people. That's where the most benefit comes from with a cohort model. It's really not something that you're asynchronously doing and kind of watching some videos on the side and then maybe writing into like a chat, like once a week, right? This is a designed to be immersive and engaging. So some of the folks you might be a communications or digital teams member who's really focused on how you can use AI for content creation. You may be looking to understand from a programming perspective, what we're able to do to analyze our data in a more robust way to truly understand the impact that we're having. You may want to have a more community-centric model to your fundraising and want to use AI tools to help you get to that point and start thinking through what those campaigns would look like to move from donor-centric to community-centric and how we can leverage AI to do that. And on advocacy, really, how can we push deeper and deeper into our advocacy work that we're doing, utilizing AI in a variety of different ways, from content creation all the way to data analysis to understand what's really moving the needle. Ryan, what are we going to walk away with from if you were a cohort member from this?
Well, Ben, I think to your first and big point that this is we're calling the cohort because we really want the peer, all the peer value points, the peer
Mm.
like meeting, networking, engaging, the sharing, the learning, the asking questions, the like, I'm not sure if this is like the kind of like, where does this fall? I'm debating asking my boss or asking my colleague, what do you folks think? Have you addressed this before? All the little things, the medium-sized things and the big things that you're not sure about and that don't necessarily even exist yet in terms of like courses and things you can buy, things you can learn, et cetera, or maybe exist in the for-profit sector, you will have here with the rest of the cohort and the community. So I think, so that's one big thing. I just wanted to kind of transition from that. You will also have not, this says like an AI implementation framework really tailored to your mission. I think it's more accurate to say yes to that, and also a number of other frameworks. I think frameworks, guidelines, like structures are kind of chapter of the AI story for the nonprofit sector right now. Like that's the chapter we're in. So there's going to be lots of like frameworks and useful kind of questions to ask, guidelines, structures, etc., as well as lots of practical experience, getting your hands dirty, both getting your hands dirty and kind of like building things, using things, and also the sharing of things, and also like listening to and learning from others who are sharing in terms of tools, tools, agents, and all the stuff that the different models and what they're good for, like everything. That's just one example. We're also going to talk about the ethics, the values and the ethics, because this is absolutely one way in which I think, like to Candace's point, it does matter and we do care. And so we want to have these conversations. We have to have these conversations. It's more than likely that there are folks in leadership positions at your organizations who are asking these questions and possibly even stuck on the questions of like, should we be using, and the environmental impact and from a political point of view, all of those questions. And then also the what you'll come out of this with is so much more confidence and actual experience. You'll have gone through this cohort, learning from, sharing, and like benefiting from everybody's feedback. You will be so much better positioned to have the conversations and lead the conversations at your team back in the office. And leadership and guidance and the kind of like a sense of what the path looks like. It's incredibly valuable to be able to have that and take that back to your organization at whatever level and be able to apply that. So that's what you'll walk away with.
Super powerful. Brad, before we go into the topics and learning modules, which is going to be a mouthful and probably a lot to finish this on, I just want to say, who is this for? It's for anyone who's done an AI 101 or has played with tools and is asking themselves, now what? Right? I think we've all experienced that moment. And I know I've experienced it. And so how do I learn? Brad, I love that you called out the faculty cohort. We learn from each other. We're learning in our own cohort model right now. And so if you have done a 101, if you've played with the tools and you're asking yourself, now what? You should totally be in one of these seats, because we are learning the exact same way, because there is no perfect place of reference right now. We're figuring it out as we go. Brad, what are we going to be figuring out?
Oh, I was going to say, you keep going. do you want to
Sure. We're going to be doing, and again, that foundational stuff, it's not 101. There will be overlap with 101 just to make sure everyone is on the same page. But that foundational work that we're going to be discussing in the first couple sessions is going to be building on what you probably have already picked up just through your own play. Moving into content creation and messaging, looking at workflow integration. That's usually where the now what starts to click, right? Like, these things that you have to accomplish by the end of the day. You're not sure how to build AI into those workflows. We're going to help you figure it out. Data analysis, That is the gold of our sector, is being able to sit with our impact data and tell powerful, compelling fundraising communication stories to continue being the amazing nonprofits and mission-focused organizations that we are. And then the most important piece, Ryan, I love that you talked to the chapters that we're moving through as a sector, because we have been in that play mode, right? Figure it out. There's this AI thing out there. Go figure it out. Now we need to start learning and becoming more intentional. And that looks like building either an individual roadmap, an organizational roadmap, a particular project roadmap, but to start getting strategic, right, around how we are going to bring AI into our day-to-day.
And someone was asking, and I'll answer. Actually, I'll just answer this one out loud. And let's wait. Hold on a second. We've got a question here from Bart. Good point. Should people find a 101 as a prerequisite to get the most from this? And the answer is no. We are going to start with the foundational 101 stuff and offer a bunch of supplements, right? And so when we kick off the first week or two of sessions, we will be covering some foundational stuff and sharing links to a bunch of other articles and resources to help folks who are more at the 101 place, right? And so we're just trying to balance and level set. And we'll also be doing a survey of folks coming in, right? So we're gonna adapt and tailor some of it as we're going through all of this. One of the exciting things I just wanted to share as we're going through the cohort is the ethical tool part of it. Right now, we have our good friends from Change Agent, which is similar to a Chat GPT-esque platform, but it's progressive, and you will have access to their tool for 3 months. There's also Chorus AI, which does some of that, but also does social media monitoring and scheduling and some media monitoring. So if you're using something like Meltwater, their tool is a really great replacement for that. Free for 3 months for folks joining it. And Socia, the social media sharing app. I think we're also going to have some other folks come in and offer free access. The free access tools will all be tools with a AI focused mission and kind of a different level of ethics around data privacy and items like that. And someone asked, will this also apply to funders or only non-profits? I'm actually not quite sure what the question is. If you don't mind replying to that, but this is a great cohort if you are a funder, I think, to help if that's the question. If you're a funder and you're thinking about, I mean, it's two-part. One, there's ways AI could be making your work better, right? And making the lives of your grantees better, but also to help you equip you to understand the landscape so you can have better conversations with them and hopefully bring more of them into the cohort, or figure out how do you help support their AI journey as you go. So if you don't mind, Layla, following up on that one. And with that,
I was going to say, or if you're a funder and you're looking to fund, we'd also say yes to that. So, get a hold of us, right? Make the ask, Brad.
Yeah. And I think also funders, yes, bring the resources that we need to keep this conversation going. Those resources 100%. Look like willing learners, right? Do you have nonprofits that are asking you for this? See if you can get them a seat. That would be fantastic. Do you have resources that you can share? Have you started building something that you'd like to demo and show nonprofits? What are you funders doing and thinking? And how are you planning to use the data? Excellent opportunity to join and learn. And I think when we kicked off, I shared my role is that bridge builder. We're all part of the same sector. I call it the social sector. It's not the nonprofit sector and the philanthropic sector, right? We all need to work together, and AI has the opportunity not just to make our work more efficient for our individual outcomes, but to make collaboration work better. So one of the biggest concerns funders have right now is are fundraisers using ChatGPT to write their proposals? They may be. And that's a reason to join the conversation. If you don't want that to happen and you'd like to make sure that there are other use cases that are explored, then let's talk about that. Bring it to the conversation. But if it's not in the conversation, it's really hard to make sure that we're addressing it as part of this AI culture that we're building.
Right. And Neil
also, like the framework of, maybe you should be encouraging people to write their proposals with AI and spend more time on their programs, but figure out what is it you're trying to get out of the proposal, right? And if this helps them speed up the writing and potentially even makes it better, stronger, faster, Daft Punk wants us to do it, right? I think that's a win for everybody, right? We need there's no nonprofit that I know of that has too much capacity. right? And so like, oh, if they're writing proposals that they don't even know will get met, that seems like a great use of AI, right? And so Ben, I'll pop it over to you. If folks should feel free to pop in questions both about the cohort and about AI. We're kind of into open convo.
Yeah.
I'll stick around as long as folks have some convos for a few more minutes. I know it's the top of the hour, some folks got to go, but Ben, I'll kick it back to you.
I just wanted to note here, Neil asked a question. As an ED for a small charity, I'm pushing back on board members who want to use it for taking notes, which are confidential. And then he's asking, would I be a better attendee compared to my communications data and volunteer coordinator? And I do think, Neil, I think the question I would ask the board is, are they wanting a note taker so they don't have to attend the meetings and they can just like read the transcript and not be fully engaged? If that's the reason that they want it, then I think you're right to push back. Like they should be attending in their fullness. But if someone is stuck taking notes every single time that you're meeting and not able to fully engage and be a part of the conversation, then that's really a problem that AI can be used to solve. And so what I would think about is, okay, are you already using Google Workspace, for example? They have their AI built into their enterprise level settings that you can toggle on and off in terms of sharing and all those bits and pieces. That can really put you in a space where you can use a piece of technology that is already approved inside your organization to do that kind of note taking, right? So there are lots of opportunities. I really struggle with people who just put blanket no's on use cases. And so I really think it's like, why does the board want it? Does the board want it because it makes it more engaging and they're more involved and it's easier to come back to? Then let's go ahead and then utilize that, but figure out the way to do it in a privacy first way that makes people comfortable with it.
So I'm just going to pop up less of a question, more of a statement. I mean to keep the decision-making human-driven, but proposal writing based on existing work is absolutely drudgery, and everyone knows it. Anything to help people spend more time on the work. I'm sure I'll never get funding for ever saying so, but I can't help it.
I mean, if you're saying that the RFP process has big, deep problems, I guess I might never get funding either because I'm going to agree with you. Big problems.
Ryann, we need your RFP matching company. We need you to do it. Please do it.
And this is why this moment's so exciting, because it is disruptive, right? The way we've done things for the last 30 years and before computers before that, right? We basically just took our workflows and our filing cabinets and put them in computers. Is there a better way now that AI is here? Is there a more innovative way to be collaborating between the money and the doers, right? The donors and the doers, the direct service folks and the philanthropies? How do we work better together so that the resources are allocated where we need them? And I think that's the potential of AI.
Rachel, you made this comment before about the opportunity for us now is to be proactive. And I just wholeheartedly agree. Wholeheartedly.
And I know Ben's got a hard stop. Ben, let's shoot to you for your closing thought for folks before you jump out.
Join the cohort. We're really excited. You're going to see a whole bunch from us over the next weeks and months as we kind of finish building this. You're going to kind of see us doing some of that building in public that we're really excited to be doing, and just really looking forward for some feedback from all of you to make sure that we're developing something that you're going to be really excited to attend. So thanks so much for being here today. Brad, I'll pass it back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. I want to share one example that came up, in an organization. They're going through their AI adoption struggles, and they're worried about staff. They have staff who spends a lot of time doing interviews with frontline activists, right? And I was like, oh, that's a friggin' awesome use case for AI, not to replace them, but to augment the bullshit work so they can spend more time in the conversation. Like, what would that look like if AI helped them have better conversations with people, and the tasky sort of day-to-day minutia is taken care of? And we've all seen this in ways already that we forget. The transition to Google, to the cloud, to Google Drive or whatever you're using, there was 10 years of resistance. I went through it across organization at organization, and I'm like, this hurts my brain. Like, why are we doing this? And now we take for granted that, like, when we put information in a shared spreadsheet, everyone has access. And we have eliminated an amount of data entry that used to consume a lot of time, right? And now we'll go to the next level of that, where, like, we can use AI to help us better read that data and help us make decisions on who to interview next, right? Like, hey, AI, like, how would I, like, what's the best way to, you could even do things of like, hey, here's like a group of people scattered across the state. I actually need to go talk to some of them in person. What would be a really like good, planning with that, with with my calendar and all of these things? AI can answer that for you, right? And so you like take away some of this unstrategic brain power, right? Like, because the human's not better at that, right? Or at least let it do the first pass on like helping me plan my schedule to like go interview all these people. And like, and what are, it can even help you answer things like, what are like iconic places to do an in-person video in this town, right? And so it could like put together a whole proposal for you. You saved all of this research time and probably hours. Like, just thinking, like, I was just thinking about like that sort of task. Like, that's the thing it can spit out and save you hours of time, and you
So,
jumpstart
Brad, can I
conversations.
jump in
Yeah.
with 2 points? I think that, so I totally agree with you. And also, I think, and this is one of the things that the cohort will do, and is also worth naming here on this, is not lose sight of the 2 things that we have called, but the people and human factor and element, and then also ethics element as well. And I've just spent most of my career talking with people within organizations who see the risk and the fear so much more than the opportunity. And as much as I'm a person who sees the opportunity, I'm trained. I'm like, it's very Pavlov's dog. Like, I'm like, risk. Let's talk about risk. So let's security and privacy and all those things. And to that end, I see the analogy I see is like nonprofits still use Facebook to acquire names and signatures on petitions, et cetera. Does anybody still think Facebook is like ethics neutral? No, no, we don't. We know now and have for a while, but we recognize, just like direct mail, or sorry, nonprofits have used direct mail and have for decades, even though, especially if you're in the environmental sector, there's a cost to paper. So I think there's a question around kind of like privacy and ethics, and we need to address that. And we will address that in the cohort itself. But part of that includes having a more nuanced conversation or conversations, and figuring out, back to Rachel, one of Rachel's earlier points, what are the questions we should be asking? Not that we have the answers to all the questions, or that those answers will never change. Nobody's saying that. But what are the questions that for your organization that matter, that let you, basically the decision-making tree, that allow you to say, well, based on these things that matter to us, we can proceed, we cannot proceed. And it's the same process that goes for Neil Leslie and answering and figuring out what to do with the board, as well as else. All to say, with these and the ethics and the human component will be very much embedded into the cohort.
And some of the practices, Ryann, that it would have been nice if these were in place already, right? Data governance. We'll talk about that. We'll make sure that if you are going to go into AI, right, like you have a data governance committee, or procurement, right? A lot of these AI tools slip under the radar, or AI enabled software, right? Did that move through your procurement policies, or did you just say, okay, AI is fine? So there's a lot of areas that we need to be thinking about. And that's, again, why this cohort model is so critical. Between Ryann, Brad, and I, we can think of a lot of things, but in your own cohort, they're going to help you, your peers, your colleagues, triangulate and come up with that best solution. And that's why we also advocate for interdepartmental teams in your organization. You're going to learn how to build, a similar model at your own organization, so that you're able to get that interdepartmental lens as you're grappling with, okay, this is on the roadmap, but I don't know if this is the next right step. And so how do you have that conversation as an organization? We're going to figure that out too.
I feel like those are 2 just perfect places to wrap up. And the next right step is to join the cohort.
Or fund the cohort. Funders, if you don't want to sit in this course because you don't see how it's relevant to you, totally okay. Send your nonprofit staff, because you know they're using it. You know they have sensitive data, and they need to be in this class to get those basics and understand how to drive their mission forward and still be compliant, maintain privacy, ethics, all of the things that are so, so important to our sector.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, thank you, Rachel and Ryan, and thank you everyone who's been watching along. And if you have questions, just this has been broadcast across many platforms. So reach out to us in the platform. Whoever has shared it will certainly follow up with you, and you can always just email cohort at centerfordigitalstrategy.com. That will get to us as well. I'm really excited about what we're building here together, and things that will be amazing and wild is like each cohort's going to be different. So the first cohort is kicking in August. We'll probably kick off another one later in the fall. And the part of the reason also like why we do AI now every 4 months, because it is moving so much every 4 months, right? We like one of our presenters last November had the concept of their company that January, but they had case studies were like really showing how nonprofits were leveraging their tools by September when we were talking about this in November. And so this is moving wildly fast. So really encourage folks to join. Let's build a community and cohort. Thanks.